You're listening to the Culips English podcast. To download the study guide for this episode, which includes the transcript, detailed vocabulary explanations, real-world examples, and a quiz, visit our website, culips.com. CULIPS.com. Hey everybody, my name is Andrew.
And I'm Suzanne.
And you're listening to Culips. Hi, Suzanne.
Hi, Andrew. How are you?
I'm doing very well. And you? How are you?
I'm doing very, very well.
That is awesome. Glad to hear it. Suzanne, today we have a lot of material to cover, so I think we should get right to it. So today's episode is a Speak Easy episode. Speak Easy is the series where our resident pronunciation expert, Suzanne, teaches us some cool pronunciation tips that make our speech sound more like a native speaker's. We learn how to talk the way native speakers do, pronounce the way native speakers do. So, Suzanne, what topic do you have for us today?
So today, we're going to look at when to use the S sound, or S, the Z sound, or Z, or the IS sound, whenever we have a plural word or a third-person singular verb.
Okay, so we are looking at the final sound on a plural or third-person singular words. And this can appear in three different ways, right? A S, a Z, or a IS form.
Exactly. It's always going to be an S in written English, but in spoken English, it will be either a S, Z, or IS.
All right, awesome. Well, I'm very excited to dig in to this topic. But just before we do that, everyone, we'd like to remind you that the study guide for this episode is available for download on our website, which is culips.com, CULIPS.com. And I think the best way to study with this episode is with the study guide. You'll really get the most out of the content that Sue will share with us here with the study guide. So why don't you visit culips.com, pick it up, and then turn us back on. I think that's a good way to do it, to follow along with us in the study guide. So anyway, Sue, let's get started. And we're looking at S and Z plurals. So yeah, what is it? What is an S and what is a Z plural?
Yeah, so when words are plural, like when you're describing one or more of something, like books or vacations or boxes, you will add an S at the end of the written word to make it plural. But when you speak the plural word, you can have three different sounds. So when you make book plural, you add an S and it sounds like S, books. When you make vacation plural, it looks like an S in the written word, but it sounds like a Z or Z, vacations. And when you make box plural, you'll see there is an ES added, but it will sound like an IS, boxes.
You know, I speak with a lot of non-native English speakers every day. I'm working with people who use English as their second language. And to be perfectly honest, pluralizing words is something that is difficult for everybody learning English. I hear many, many mistakes. So I think for a lot of you listeners out there, this will be really a helpful episode. But Suzanne, how do we know? How do we know which plural ending to use, when to use s, when to use z, and when to use is. How do we know this?
Well, there are a few rules, but first let's listen to some examples and see if we can figure out the rules from those examples.
Very good idea. Okay, let's do that. Let's listen to an example right now.
Dude, the bees this year are really aggressive.
Yeah, my friend is a beekeeper, and he says that every day he loses his cool because dozens of bees try to escape the hives.
Wow, what an interesting job. I guess he likes bee bites.
Nah, he works well with them and finds he doesn't get bitten very often, if ever.
Whoa, I couldn't do it. A job like that creeps me out. It takes a lot of courage to stick your hands in a hive full of bees.
For sure. He takes good care of them and watches each moment when he's dealing with them.
I'd like to watch him in action sometime.
Yeah, sounds good. I'll ask him when he works and we'll make a plan. All right, so we just listened to an example. So I have to say you made a little bit of a weird example, but it's good because it really illustrates this pronunciation feature of the plural and the third person S sound. Now, Sue, like you told us earlier, there are 3 different ways we can pronounce the plural S, third person S. And the first way is S, just by adding the S sound, right?
Yes.
So why don't we go through the example and find all the times we heard that in the example?
Sounds good.
What did you hear, Sue? Maybe you can point them out to us.
Sure. Wow, what an interesting job. I guess he likes bee bites, right? Likes and bee bites.
I guess he likes bee bites. Yeah. So there we heard it 2 times, right? Likes and bites.
Next we see, nah, he works well with them and finds he doesn't get bitten very often, if ever. So works is an S sound.
Okay, he works with them. Perfect. Works.
And then in the next line, we hear, a job like that creeps me out. Creeps.
Creeps. Okay, we got the S there. What else?
And then at the end, in the last line, they say, yeah, sounds good. I'll ask him when he works and we'll make a plan. Works.
Okay, very good. So in the whole example, we heard likes, bites, works, and creeps. Very cool. So why do we add a S sound to these words? What is the rule, Suzanne?
If you notice, all of the root words, or the words before adding the S, end in a voiceless consonant. A consonant that doesn't have any voice, that just has air, like work, or creep, or bite, or like. These sounds, k, t, and p, all do not have voice. So whenever you have a word that ends with a voiceless consonant, you're going to add an S sound to make it plural, or for the third person singular verb, like works, creeps, likes, and bites.
Very cool. So whenever you have a voiceless consonant, then you just add an S sound to make it plural, right? So like park would become parks. Shoot would become shoots. Map would become maps. All of those words end with voiceless consonants, and so we just add a S sound to make it plural.
Yeah, Yeah. Another example is an F sound. F is also voiceless. So like chef, chefs, that would also have an S at the end.
Perfect, perfect. So that's our first rule, everyone. If you have a word that ends in a voiceless consonant that you have to turn into a plural, or if it's a third person verb, then you simply add a S sound to the end. Okay, Sue, what about the second rule? What is our second pronunciation rule for today?
So let's look at all of the words that are plural or third person singular that end with a Z sound. Can you help me pick those out, Andrew?
The bees. Dude, the bees this year.
Yeah, the bees. Exactly.
Okay, we have bees. What else did I hear? I heard says,
Yep. Says.
hives, hives,
Yep. Hives. I think we have hands.
hands,
Stick your hands.
finds.
Finds. The last one there is sounds.
Sounds. Okay, sounds.
Sounds. Yeah.
Very good. So in all of these words, we hear the last letter, the S, the alphabet letter S on the end of the word being pronounced as a Z, as a Z, as we say in Canada.
I know.
No.
Sorry to confuse you guys.
So Sue, why? Why do we pronounce these with a Z sound?
Yeah. So if you notice, all of those words have a root word that ends with a voiced consonant, right? Like find or sound or hive, dozen, dozens, right? Dozen. So these are all words that have voiced consonants at the end of their root word. And so because of that, you will add a Z sound at the end when it's plural. So it's also important to notice that a word that ends with a vowel, like B will go to bees, or zoo will go to zoos, or family will go to families. So if it's a voiced consonant or a vowel, the word will have a Z at the end when plural or in the third person singular.
So just to recap, our first rule is that if the root word ends with a voiceless consonant, voiceless sound, and that means there's no vibration in your throat when you pronounce it, then we simply pronounce the S like a S. But if the root word ends in a voiced consonant, this means there's vibration in our throat. And this also includes words that end with vowels, because vowels are voiced. Then we switch to a Z sound when we pronounce the third person singular verb or a plural word, right?
Right.
Very, very cool. Okay, so there is one final way that we can pronounce the plural S or the third person S on verbs. And Sue, what is that? Let's take a look again to go back to the example. Let's find the instances of this third way to pronounce the plural. I don't know. What did you hear?
I think we only have a couple in here.
Yeah, it's not as common, is it? This third way. Yeah.
It's not as common. Right. So I heard loses. Loses.
Loses. I heard watches.
Yes, watches. And I feel like that's all I heard.
Okay, so
Yeah.
we heard loses and watches. It's actually adding a whole extra syllable to the word, isn't it? Lose
It is.
becomes loses. Watch becomes watches. And so what's the rule around this? When do we add that extra syllable to a word? Why and when?
So we heard lose, changed to loses, loses. So the ending of that word was what, Andrew? Lose.
Lose. So that's a Z sound.
Yeah, so that's a Z. And then also watch. Ch, ch. Watch.
Ch. Yeah, watch. Ch.
Yeah, it's a ch sound. And in fact, it's kind of a form of an S and Z, right? It's kind of in the same family. Whenever you have an S or a Z at the end of a word, like loss or lose, or a sh sound like fish, or a zh sound like garage, or a ch sound like watch, or a j sound like
Judge.
judge. Thank you. If the word ends with a s sound, a z, a sh, a zh, a ch, or a j, you will add an is at the end of the word to make it plural. So let's try some examples maybe, just because we didn't have so many instances in the dialogue.
Cool. Hey, Sue, how about I say the singular, you say the plural?
Sounds great.
Okay. Lease.
Leases,
Prize.
prizes,
Buzz.
buzzes,
Mash.
mashes,
Match.
matches.
Wow. And we can use these as nouns or verbs, almost all of those examples, right? You could say, I sign a lease, or I sign leases, or I lease a car, he leases a car, right? It's the same whether the word is a noun or a verb.
Exactly. These two cards are matches, and, well, she matches the decor of the house.
Perfect. Or you could say her outfit matches today.
Yeah.
Okay, everyone, so we looked at 3 different rules for how to pronounce the plural S and the third person singular S in English today. Thanks, Sue, for enlightening us all about these pronunciation rules.
My pleasure.
One more time before we let you go, I want to remind you about our website, which is culips.com. It's a place where you can get more information about who we are, what we do. And you could also listen to previous episodes on the website and download the study guide for this episode. If you want to check us out on social media, we are on Facebook at facebook.com/culipspodcast and on Twitter at culips. All right, that is it for us today. Thank you for listening, and we will talk to you next time. Bye.
Bye.
Do you like listening to Culips? If so, please show your support by leaving Culips a 5-star rating and a review on iTunes or Stitcher. This helps new listeners find the show. So don't delay. Rate and review today.